Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a Longarm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So we have had quite the week here in Indiana. If you read my newsletter this past weekend, you know that we had several storms go through last week, and I know some of it's been on the news, and I don't say this to say, hey, look at me. This is, I know when I'm watching other people on YouTube, it's fun to hear what they're going through in their home life and in their area of the country. We live in such a vast expanse of land and terrain and beautiful land, but that means we also encounter very different circumstances throughout the year. And here in springtime in Indiana is tornado season. And not that we've had to deal with it a lot. I know there are other parts of the country that deal with it much more than Indiana. But last Wednesday night, so after my video came out on Wednesday, so then last Wednesday night we did have tornadoes come through, and close enough to us that we headed for cover. Just we had been watching it, listening to it on the scanner, and heard that within about 7 miles there was rotation spotted. So that's close enough for me, especially with the how fast those move. So we headed for the closet. Thankfully, it went farther north of us, but that meant that other people were hit, and there was some loss of life, some destruction. Some people from our church, their business was hit by the tornado, and I love their perspective on it. They said, you know, it's the best that could have happened. I mean, yes, it got hit. Yes, they're recovering. There's some, you know, things that need to be done to fix it. The doors, they had big overhead doors on their business. Those blew in. They had a windshield from an RV that was outside that was blown into the building. I mean, just that kind of stuff everywhere. But quite the experience. We went to shelter. We don't have a basement, unfortunately, so went to the innermost closet, and Stephen and my husband and we lost power right at the beginning of the storm, and storms blew through. We continued to listen to the scanner and talk to the kids, found out where everybody is. Everybody was safe, and but we lost power for about 24 hours. It came on for a few hours in the morning, and I thought we were okay. But all day Thursday we were without power, which means when we live in the country, that means we're also without water. It was warm enough that I wasn't worried about the heat not being on. We didn't have any trouble there, but water's a big thing. Oh my goodness, you don't realize how often you go to that sink to get water and there's nothing there. So we do have some reserves that we use when we need to. We did make a trip into my husband's office about 25 minutes away to fill up with some more water, but thankfully the power came back on about midnight on Thursday night. But that means that I don't get any sewing done in all that time. I did do some cleaning. I did get to organize some of my cross stitch. It was bright enough, and even during the daytime, the sun wasn't shining, but it was bright enough that I was able to do some reorganizing, some cleaning, get my cross stitch moved kind of where I wanted. Some of it, not completely, but got to go through some of my patterns and all that. So I tried to make, as it was said, make lemonade out of lemons, and had a good time. But I was starting to get a little bored and a little antsy because I've got lots of sewing that I needed to get done, some deadlines I needed to hit, plus all the long arm quilting I had to do. So I was getting a little antsy there. But that came back on. Stephen turned 19. Oh, back up first. My husband is an insurance agent and has been 30 plus years. He's been in the insurance business since before, we call it BT, before Tammy. And so he was an adjuster for a while, but he's been an insurance agent for many, many years here. So he has had a busy week here helping clients to get the help that they needed with claims that they had. And he shared some pictures with me yesterday. This was not one of his clients, but this did come into the office. It was a trampoline, so like one of those big trampolines that kids bounce on in the backyard. The poles, the legs of that had been ripped off of the trampoline and had gone through the second story siding of a house. And so he showed pictures of the pole. So, you know, probably however tall those legs are, 4 feet tall. Half of it is sticking out the side of the siding of the 2-story house, and the other half is inside of a bedroom. How does that happen? I just cannot imagine the force of that. And down power lines, we did have a young man in our community die when his vehicle ran over some down power lines. His car caught on fire. He had to get out of the vehicle. When he did, he was electrocuted and died. So that's very sad. If you could pray for that family. I know he left behind a wife and a young son. So some tragic events. And just pray that you are safe where you are as well. And just so sad. But thankfully we were spared. We didn't have any damage that I know of. My husband said he'll go up on the roof and look and that kind of stuff in a couple days once the claims adjusters, at least in his office, calm down a little bit, you know, once their workload calms down. He said they worked the entire weekend, 14-hour days, the entire weekend, and they're still trying to get caught up with that. So pray that you are safe. Our electricity is back on. We did lose it again the other day for some reason. There was a tree that came down about a half mile from our house. Not sure what caused it, whether it was windy that night, but not so much that I thought a tree would come down. But we did lose electricity again the other night. It was after the ball game, after basketball, after the ball game. So we just said, forget it, we're going to bed anyway. So how'd you do on your bracket? I think I ended up second or third. I was at the top before at the Final Four because I had all 4 of the Final Four teams right. I was so excited. And then the first night of the Final Four, the 2 teams that I had chosen to go on both lost, and so then I dropped. So I didn't end up winning the bracket, but it was a fun time. Basketball's over, ready for baseball. I'm sorry if you're bored by sports. Our families enjoyed sports. Not that our kids played a lot of sports. My husband and I both played some in high school. But it's just been one of those family things. My husband and I have enjoyed that, is a lot of our dating experiences, and even as we've gotten on in years in our marriage, it's just one of those fun things that we shared together and our family has shared. So it's on to baseball season, and I don't know about you, but when the season changes and it's on to the next sport, it takes me a while to get into it. So I'm like, yeah, baseball's on. I don't really feel like watching it yet. I don't know. I'm just not quite into baseball yet. I'll get there, but basketball's done, on to baseball. But I'm just glad sewing goes on all the time. Quilting goes on all the time because I love this. So, and even with the sports, I combine my sewing with that a lot of times. On Sunday afternoons, if I'm quilting, I've got NASCAR on. In the evening, if I'm doing cross stitch, I have a baseball game on, and just really enjoy that. So I have some things to share with you today. I was going to tell you, Stephen turned 19 this past weekend. We did a big birthday party for him. Don't know that we've ever had a friend birthday party for him. So you'll want to join my newsletter so you can see pictures of our Nerf battle that we did on Friday night for his birthday. Kanan, our little grandson, turns a year old this week, so we do have a party for him coming up. I cannot believe it's been a whole year and those grandbabies are getting ready to turn a year old, but they're such a joy. Just love them to death. So personal sewing, things I've worked on this week. I have worked on my hometown holiday sampler, but I think I'll share my progress with that next week with you. I didn't quite get enough. I mean, I've done some, but I just thought I'll just put it off. The major thing that I did this week was finished up my square up quilt for the Fat Quarter Shop, and that was why I was sweating bullets when the power went out. I'm like, that's what I'd planned on doing all day on Thursday, was getting that quilt finished up, and best laid plans of mice and men. Is that the way it goes? But that had to be done over the weekend instead. So I finished up my entire square up quilt, got it quilted and bound, and pictures off to the Fat Quarter Shop. I cannot share that with you yet. That will be coming out on April 22nd. So on my video on April 23rd, I will be sharing my square up quilt, and so excited about that. I did use the fabric line called Things Above by Fancy That Design House. I loved it. Loved the colors of it. I love that fabric, and so I'll be able to share all of that with you in just a couple weeks, but that has been the majority of my week this week, is getting that all finished up. But I did receive something in the mail. My next big, well, I've always got big projects going on, but look what I received in the mail. This is the kit for the Scrappy Americana flag quilt that is coming up. This is Lori Holt's new line called Americana. And I have the pattern here to show you. So, oops, I kind of bent it up. So this quilt measures 65 by 105. Looks like a simple flag, right? Look at each one of those blocks. Each of the red stripes is a tone-on-tone red, and it's a pieced block. All of this is pieced, no applique. All of those white strips right there are tone-on-tone white blocks. So fun. And even the blue ones, the blues with the stars, those are all pieced blocks, all of this. This is a quilt-along that Lori Holt and Kimberly Jolly are doing from Fat Quarter Shop. I believe this starts in May. They may have postponed it a tad bit, but you'll want to grab your kit. So I received my kit in the mail, and I haven't even taken it out of the package yet. Oh my goodness, these fabrics are absolutely beautiful. I love the Americana theme. Let me see if I can get into this. Ooh, okay. I love the Americana theme. Just, oh. I love that Lori did a line like this. Oh my goodness, I can't pull the plastic. All right. Here are some of the low volumes. I love this. The Land of the Free. Is that what it says? What is that? The music score on there. By the Red, White, and Blue. I don't know that song, do I? When Born by the Red, White, and Blue. I'm going to have to look that up. Please forgive me. That's, I don't know that song. But then Star Spangled Banner is on here, America the Beautiful. I love the music score on there. And there's a wide back that goes with this. I don't think the wide backs are in yet, but there's a wide, not in this color. There's a wide back that has red, and there's a wide back that has blue. So it's the background is the same, but the printing is red and blue. The wide backs, I love those. So a lot of the low volumes, you can see the blues and the reds. And then here is the other half. Oh, I just love this. Oh, look at this print on the front. Almost like a bandana type print. The called for backing is that print, but in a red, white, and blue, a white background with the red and the blue. You can see some of these prints. So beautiful. So the quilt kit is available now. You'll want to go ahead and get your hands on the quilt kit. If you buy the quilt kit, that does come with the pattern, or you can buy the pattern separately. And so all of these are, they are finished 5-inch blocks. So you've got the reds and the blues, the reds and the whites, and then you have the blue star blocks as well. So fun, so fun. So I really like that. And listen real careful. I don't know if you can hear Stephen singing in the other room. Stephen loves to put his headphones on and listen to music, and he colors at the same time, and he sings out loud. Love to hear him sing. He does the same thing in the car, sings out loud, but he doesn't know that I'm filming, so he's in there. He's in the other room singing out loud. So if you hear that in the background, that's what it is. Just my normal music going on in my house. All right, so that's the Americana box. That quilt kit is, or that's the, what's that called again? Americana flag, Scrappy Americana flag. That is, that arrived this week. Love, love, love that. Can't wait to get started on that. The other thing that Lori and the Fat Quarter Shop are doing with the Americana line is the Hometown Holiday Sampler. So the quilt that I'm working on with the Hometown Holiday fabric line, Lori has recolored that in the Americana prints, and that pattern is available. There is a quilt kit available for that as well. I'm hoping that I have at least some of this fabric left over that then I can redo that one. That'll be later on. I don't, I've got enough going on with this and the other things right now. But I love that redoing that in the Americana prints is really nice. Maybe you didn't do the first one with the Christmas prints, and you'll be able to join in on doing that pattern on using the Americana line. And that's all piece blocks as well, no applique. Now, Lori does have, oh, here's a picture of that. This is the Hometown Holiday sampler quilt done with the Americana prints. So, and I'll link that down below. Now, Lori does have her next applique quilt coming along, and that is using the Americana line. This one is called Sweet Land Sew Along, and I believe this starts in May. Can you hear him singing? I believe this starts in May as well. Now, this one takes Lori's Sew Simple Shapes, and but there's no pattern for it. You download her what's it called, her sew along guide, and that has not come out yet as far as I can see. Her sew along guide will be coming along very soon. That gives you all the cutting instructions, everything you need, but then you follow along on her blog where she shows you how to put the blocks together, and but you will need the Sew Simple Shapes. I believe the Sew Simple Shapes are available, and again, this is an applique. I believe there are 5 piece blocks and then 4 applique blocks. And if you notice, the 4 applique blocks are all the same. The 5 piece blocks look very similar unless they use different fabrics. They use different fabrics. And it looks like even the applique ones, you're doing the same block 4 times, but you're using different fabrics with each one. So very, very pretty. I didn't pull up the measurements on this quilt, but knowing Lori, it's a good size quilt. All of hers are. And I also wanted to let you know that starting next week is Lori's Prairie Home sampler. This quilt along is going on at the Fat Quarter Shop. I do have all my fabrics for this one, and this actually starts next week as well. And the finishing pattern is now available. So this came out March 15th, I want to say, and then your first blocks start on April 15th, or you can do it either way. Either you start April 15th on the first blocks, or you finish by April 15th the first blocks, whichever way you want to look at it. This is a year-long sew-along. This uses Lori's Prairie Home fabric line and her book. Is it called Prairie Home as well? I should have brought that down to show you, but the schedule is out. These are free PDFs that you can download from the Fat Quarter Shop. I will link them down below, but that is a fun project as well. So many fun things going on. I hope you're joining in on some of them, and I will share my progress. I'm hoping to get a lot done on my Hometown Holiday sampler, the holiday version. How do you like that? The holiday version, I really would like to get that finished up. We'll see how far I get by next week. So something else that arrived in the mail that I wanted to share with you. I've been in the works with this for a couple months here and waited till after the first of the year to order these and get these in. I have decided to expand my wide backings that I carry in my studio. A lot of people I know, you finished quilts, and sometimes it's quilts that you finished 20 years ago and now you got to go find a backing for it. Or you finished up a quilt and you're ready to send it off, but now I got to go find a backing. So I have decided to expand my wide backings so that you can go ahead and send your quilt top to me, and then I can pick a backing here, or you can pick it prior to. But I got 6 new wide backings in. Besides, you can see over my head in that corner, I do carry Minky. Right now I have 3 colors of Minky. I have the light gray, which I believe is called Platinum. I have the tan, which is called Sand, and then I have a white. Those are all in 90-inch widths. I don't want to have to piece, so these are wide backings. So I've got the, how about I go tell him to calm down, you think? Okay, hold on just a second. All right, I'm not sure if he knew I was filming or not, but if he did, he was trying to do a concert for you all. So let me share I was talking about Minky. I keep my Minky back there. I do have wide backings. Those are all the 90-inch. So if you're sending a quilt to me and you would like to use one of those Minkies or one of the wide backings I'm going to show you, just make a note at the top of your form. I have not put a place on my form yet that says wide backings and you can mark it. I will plan on doing that soon. I will update my intake form to have a specific place, but in the meantime, if you'll just mark it at the top that you want this Minky or you want this wide backing, or please pick a wide backing, whatever you want. And a couple things. One, this saves you on shipping. You don't have to either go to your quilt store or have the wide backing shipped to you and then you're shipping it to me. So hopefully it'll save you on some shipping cost. But then just the convenience of already having it here and trying to help you out with that. So let me show you what I did get in. These are all 108s. Yes, 108s. So these are super heavy. All right, I got two light colored ones in. These are all cotton. These are from Quilter's Choice Cotton, which and so this first one is a tone on tone. This is a white tone on tone, and I apologize because whites just do not always show up well on camera. This is like a linen look. So you can see just the, that's the best I can describe it. It's like a linen look, but it is a cotton fabric. This is a white on white. You can see that there. So that is one choice. I do get quite a few quilts in that need a white on white, and so I wanted to do a couple of different choices on that. And the second one has the scrolls. I hope you can see that. So it is a tone on tone, so not until you get up close are you going to be able to see. So it looks like a white, but it has just the scroll print, almost like the espresso type pantograph or something like that. So those are a couple of the lighter ones. I did do 3 different blues because blue seems to be a common color for using for a backing, but you can get such a wide variation. So this first one is a brighter blue, and this has the scroll print just like the white one did. But you can see the background is just a little bit of a mottled, so it would work well with your batiks. If you don't want to use a batik backing, this would work well for a batik quilt. Brighter colors, anything that has very vibrant colors, I think this one would work well. It does have a little bit of the mottling, so if your quilt was a little darker, I think it'll blend well with that one too. So the scrolls on that one, can you see the scrolls? Yeah, you can kind of see the scrolls, and that's what the white on white that I just showed, that's what that one has as well, without the mottling in the background. So kind of a brighter blue. Then I would call this one more of a medium. This one is also mottled, but there are no scrolls on this one. So just more of a mottled kind of color there, a medium, but you do have some darker, so I think this would be a good blender as well. It could work for lots of different colors of quilts. So that is that one. And then I did a darker blue. I would call this one more of a, I like this one. More of a midnight blue. It's probably showing a little lighter on camera than it actually is. More of a midnight blue, and then you can see the pattern on this one. They're little dots that are creating that spiral, and these are the dots are kind of a gray, maybe a little silvery, but more of a grayish type, and you can see the mottling in the background, a little bit of the darker there as well. So a darker blue on this one, very, very nice as well. All right, and then I have one more. This one is a gray. And this one is that linen look again. So you can see the little lines in it, giving the effect of linen, but this is a cotton fabric. So a gray, and then the lines are lighter than the background, so your overall pattern your overall is the background is the light gray, and then the lines on top, or the linen look, is a little lighter than that, maybe even a lighter gray or a little bit of a creamy white on top of that. All right, so whether you say that is the color that I want, you know, and you tell me, or if you just say pick a backing. And a lot of times when I pick, I'm trying to get more of a variety in, because if I don't have one, then I'm going to my local quilt store and I'm purchasing a backing for you. So, which takes time for me to travel, time for me to get back. I just thought it'd be good to just have some on hand so that I can pick those for you if you're needing a backing for your quilts, especially those that have been sitting in your closet for 20 years and it's time to get them finished. Let's pull them out. You're not going to find a backing fabric that matches the stuff on the front anyway, so let's have a backing that I can pick for you and we can get those quilts done. Love wide backings. I think wide backings are a great choice. Saves you time, and then you're not having to piece anything. It also saves you money. If you look at the cost of a wide backing compared to buying yardage, unless you're finding it on sale or something like that, but overall you're getting a better deal for your money in a wide backing. So, and I have done those calculations in the past because I wanted to see, is it worth it? And today we are getting such a wide range of wide backings that I think it's a really good idea to use for your quilts. It just makes everybody happy and makes everything much easier. So that is what I have going on in my personal sewing and that I've gotten in the mail this week. So how about we move on to some customer quilts? Brenda made this lovely quilt from a panel. She says the panel is called Land of the Free, and she did purchase that from Missouri Star Quilt Company. And I will show you the backing in just a minute, which also she purchased from Missouri Star, and it's just so beautiful. She says the rest of this fabric that she has used around the panel, all the patriotic pieces, she had in her stash or she had purchased from Joann Fabrics. So the panel in the middle, you have the Statue of Liberty, some fireworks, some city scene, you have the American flag up here, just very, very pretty. And then around that she did do side strips on either side, the red, white, and then the blue is a firework pattern on there. So the red is like a tone on tone, the white is a tone on tone, and then the blue actually has red, white, and blue fireworks on it. So she did that on the left and right side, then she did that across the top and the bottom of that panel, and then what she has done on the next section, pull this in so you can see, she did red, and then the same red is then over here, and then this white print has words on it, so stripes, liberty, honor, America, free, all kinds of words, and the background is white with red stars, and then blue, the words are in blue. And so those red stripes with the white words in the white fabric with the blue words in between, then come down to these cornerstones on all four corners that have the star block. So the star is white, the white tone on tone. Around that is that blue firework fabric. It's so pretty. She's done a white border around that, and then the blue firework border around that. So very nice use of the fabrics. I love the stripes in there. She's done a nice job of accenting this panel and making the panel much larger. So the final quilt measures 66 by 85. So very, very nice. I'd really like this. The background fabric, or the backing fabric, this is a 108, and this is called Constitution. She did purchase this from Missouri Star Quilt Company also, and it's the Constitution on the back of here. So it's the antique color there with the wording, very faint in some spots. It's like the papers are just all laying over the side of each other. Very, very nice. Now, this wide backing, let me grab the extras so I can show you what I want to talk about next. All right, I wanted to show you this wide backing. So this is what was left of the wide backing. This is just across the bottom. So what I want to show you is, here is the selvage on one end of the wide backing, and then I have used the other part. I see string hanging from my arm. So I have used the top portion. So this is 108 inch wide, and I'll explain why I have this there in just a second. So what I want you to notice is, here is the selvage, okay? Notice that the wording runs perpendicular to that selvage, okay? So usually with 108 wide backing, you would load the selvages on, or that's the way I like to do it. I like to load selvages onto my leader bars, because then I know that that is straight. It gives me a straight edge to pin or to use my red snappers on there. Now notice with this quilt, this is 108 inch wide backing. The quilt top measures 66 by 85. So there was plenty of room to put the quilt lengthwise on this 108 inch backing. And Brenda gave me plenty. I didn't measure. I don't know how much she gave me. I didn't pay attention to that. Anyway, so I did at the beginning, but now I don't know how much was there. So I had plenty of fabric to work with. But what I wanted you to see is this, the wording is perpendicular to the selvage here. So a 108 inch wide backing, I would normally load the selvages, and then I would put the lengthwise part of the quilt this direction on the wide backing. But if I did that with this quilt, then the panel is going to be running up and down like this, but the wording is going to be side to side, and I didn't like that. So what I did instead is I did load it this direction with the wording running perpendicular to the selvage, but then I was able to, I did turn this quilt. I actually put the head of the Statue of Liberty at this end, because that's the way I had the words at the top of this. That's the way I had the words, was at this direction. And that way, when this quilted out, you were able to see the words are upside right, the Statue of Liberty is upside right. So I just want to make the comment that you have to be sure of which direction your wide backing is going. So this is a beautiful wide backing, but with this one, if I had not had enough lengthwise to load this lengthwise, I would have loaded it this direction instead. I would have done it like this with my selvages down either side, and I would have put the quilt that way. I didn't have to do that with this quilt. If the pantograph that I was using stitched out in a way that it was not going to look correct, if I loaded it sideways, then I would have need to change. And you'll see with the pantograph that it worked by loading it sideways fine. So just be sure that you load your wide backings, that the direction of your wide backings, you will come across this sometimes, that the direction of it is actually perpendicular to the selvages, and at that point you're either going to have to load the selvages. If your quilt is directional like this one is, you'll either have to load the selvages on the sides, or you'll have to rotate your quilt horizontally so that you're stitching it out that way. So the pantograph on this one is called Crisscross Stars. So this combines the stars like I drew in school. I still draw now with the 5-pointed stars. That is what it is, where you're just connecting all your lines, making your star, and then it has a meander stitch till you get to the next star. This is a very squared off pantograph, meaning it's like this, and it doesn't nest up a whole lot to the one above it. A little bit, but not a whole lot. So it's a very boxy pattern, I want to say. So there are probably 3 or 4 of those stars in there, a little different sizes, a little different shapes to them, but they're all that same like you would draw on paper. And then in between there is that meander stitch, and it just meanders around and then does your star, meanders to the next one, and then does your star. So with this pantograph, it did not matter if it was, so this actually stitched out this way, but this is a pantograph you're not going to notice one way or the other. They're very similar, one direction to the other. The other thing I wanted to tell you about this quilt is that I did use an Omni Cream thread, and the reason was the backing fabric. I could have used white on the front, and it does have some bright white backings or background fabrics here in these stripes. And I could have used white on this. I think it would have looked fine. But if I put white in the front, I would have needed to use white on the back, I felt like. And I felt like white on the back was going to be too bright. I thought that was going to detract from the Constitution wording and the antique-y looking feel of this fabric. So I did go with cream, and I think it blended really nice. So you may notice a little bit on the whites that it's just a hint darker than the white. It probably blends in better on the Statue of Liberty being a cream color rather than the white. The white might have been a little bright on that, but then between the two, it really looks much better on the backing with having that cream color thread on the backing. I think it keeps it looking old like that. So that's the crisscross star, it's called the crisscross star pantograph, and in the cream thread with a panel, some stripes that you can create this beautiful quilt. This would be a great quilt for Quilts of Valor. If you know a local chapter in your area, or you can send quilts into the national organization and then they can gift those out to veterans. Quilts of Valor is something that my Quilt Circle membership does, and we've already had 2 presentations, I believe 2, maybe 3 already this year. And I just love that the members have gotten behind this whole effort, and every quarter we switch the blocks that we are making. They're all sent to our coordinator. Then she packages those together, sends them on to another member. They put the quilt together. Maybe someone else does the long arming, or that person is able to do the long arming as well. We send them back to our coordinator, and then she's able to gift them to veterans in her area. So a great cause, a great way to honor those who have served in the American, who have served in the U.S. military, and so appreciate their sacrifice in that area and love to honor that in them in that way. So a panel is a great way to create a quilt for Quilts of Valor, but you'll want to check out their website so that you know the exact dimensions, the sizing that they're looking for, the type of quilts that they're looking for to be able to gift to veterans. So Brenda did a great job, and I can't wait to get it back to her. This beautiful quilt was made by Loretta, and I know she's making this for a friend. I think the friend asked her to make it. So Hawaiian prints, and from what I remember, this is fabric that she bought in Hawaii, I want to say, and maybe some shirts as well, because this fabric is not a cotton. It's a little thinner, a little sheener, I guess I want to say. But I just can't quite remember. But the 5 panels, the 5 largest squares in this, it's basically a 9 patch with sashing, but the 5 largest squares all have the same large floral flower there, and so that's why I think that may be yardage, and then these other 4 are different, and I think those may be shirts, but I can't quite remember that. So then she's used black sashing in between. She did fussy cut some of these other flowers out of the fabric and then appliqued those on. Actually, they are just like steam-a-seamed on. There's no stitching around the edges of those. And then also at the top, she did fussy cut the word Hawaii from one of those prints. And I know that was in this fabric because I can also see it. It's going to be upside down for you, but I can also see it right there in that fabric. So bright colors, love the bright red flowers, and just a great way to memorialize a trip, you know, or a person in your life that maybe have worn shirts and you want to save them in a keepsake that's a little more usable than the shirts hanging in the closet. So let me flip this around and show you the back. So then she took some of those same pieces, not the big red floral print, but some of these others, and made just 5-inch squares and alternated them with like a black mottled print. Some of them she did have to piece together because, you know, when you're using shirts and things, you only have so much material. So she did have to piece some of these together so that it made a 5-inch square. And then squares are a little small, then they become rectangles around the edge. She added a border, a skinny border, which is this lighter print here. And then the batik, the blue batik, kind of reminds you of the crystal blue water and that kind of thing. So very, very nice, and love it. It's just a really nice job. So the pantograph I chose for this one, she told me something floral perhaps, so I went with one called Bell Blossom, and I think you might be able to see it right here on the black. I did use the light gray thread on this, but it's one of those that it reads more like a neutral or a cream on those dark fabrics. But I felt that the light gray worked well. I think cream or white would have been too bright. The light gray still keeps it light and bright because we are working with bright colors within the fabrics, and so I didn't want to do a darker gray, a medium gray, or a dark gray because I felt that would have dulled the fabrics there. So the light gray, well, it keeps these things light. You're still noticing it on the black. So Bell Blossom is a 5-petaled flower. I think you can see that right there. I thought this kind of mimicked this, and I don't know what this flower is, please forgive me, but kind of mimicked that. I didn't want to do something like Flower Child or Dave's Sunflowers. I was really looking for something, a different sort of flower, not a daisy, not, you know, not anything like that. And so this Bell Blossom, 5-petaled, it has little loops on the center. The petals of it are tipped in one direction and then pointed, if you can see that. And then it does a couple swirls, not any tight swirls. They kind of mimic that same design that is in the petals. And then onto another Bell Blossom flower there. So I like the way that this worked on this one. The Bell Blossom themselves are probably 3.5 inches tall. So this pantograph was about this big when I stitched it out. I did not feel that this needed a very tight, tight density, although that this pantograph really lends itself well to a good coverage. There's open spaces within the Bell Blossom itself, within some of the swirls, but it's a good coverage with still keeping the flower very large, which is the way the fabrics look as well. So I'm not sure if I mentioned, this measures 48 by 48, so a great size, a great memento, be able to throw on the back of a couch or at the end of a bed. Probably isn't going to be one that's going to be used, you know, it's going to be more for display, and so the size is perfect for that. So Loretta did a great job. I have 2 quilts by Carrie, and they are the exact same quilt. So each one measures 66 by 90, and Carrie said this is an original pattern that she did. She used the Holt seed rulers and created the blocks that you can see here, and then she put the pattern together on her own. So very, very nice. So you can see each one is a block, and I would say it is probably 8 inches, maybe 10 inches square, something like that. So it's all the same background fabric, so it goes together pretty seamlessly. It's hard, you know, you'd really have to look hard to see if everything lined up, and it just looks like an all-over pattern. But each one is a block, and then she used Holt seed rulers, which are these parts here. So if you purchase Holt seed rulers, they come in 2 different sizes. It's a 4-inch size and an 8-inch size, and it looks like Carrie has used the 4-inch size to create just this 4-petaled flower, and then it has the circle in the middle to cover those points in of the 4 pieces of the seed, the 4 flowers, petals coming together in the center. So a circle right there. The fabric line on this is Gingham Gardens, and this was done by My Mind's Eye. That is done for Riley Blake. This was a 2021 release, so you may be able to find it on some of the smaller shops or somewhere online, but it's not in the major shops anymore because it's several years old. But a very, very fun garden themed line. You have some black prints, you have some blue, like a pale blue, some green, some yellows, some mauve colors. This background fabric here with the words, it says sunshine, love. Some of them are in print block, some of them are in cursive. I don't believe that this background fabric is part of this same Gingham Gardens line. When I looked it up at Riley Blake's site, I did not see this. If you know the name of this fabric line, would you let me know? I love this print. It's so fun, and a really, really nice background for this quilt. So, seed rulers. This is just by seed rulers. All this is one of Lori Holt's applique shapes, and I wanted to kind of explain a little bit about Lori Holt's applique method. If you've never done it before, I'm sure you've heard of Lori Holt's applique quilts, and this is a great way to just pull out some of the So Simple shapes. If you've done any of the other quilt-alongs that she's done with her So Simple shapes, or if you just buy this, the seed rulers are available just as themselves. But with Lori Holt's So Simple shapes, I pulled some out here so I could show you. This is from when I did my, I've done 2 of her applique quilts. One was my Happy Place quilt, with all the sewing related things, and then the second one was the Calico Garden, and those are the 2 that I finished. So I pulled out a couple of her So Simple shapes from, these were from my Happy Place. So there was a large a jar, you can see those. So they're made out of just the, whatever that plastic is, mylar plastic, I don't know. Here's a flower, you can see that one. Here's a larger flower. This shape was used to make yarn spools, yarn, whatever those yarn things are. I don't use yarn. So, and then I pulled out a couple of her heart shapes, all different, but these were all in that just to do that one quilt. So let me kind of show you, walk you through what her applique process is. There's several different ways to do applique. This is the way Lori Holt does it. And I tend to do this now in this day and age. I used to do, and sometimes still do, raw edge applique, where I just use like steam-a-seam tracing paper. It's sticky on one side. Actually, I like to use the ones that are fusible on both sides, and I'll trace whatever design. So let's say if I was using that applique method, I would trace the heart onto the steam-a-seam on one side. I would peel off that paper, then I would heat press that to the back of a fabric, and then peel off that paper, and then you can cut around your shape, and then you can press that, because now you've got a sticky side on the back of your fabric, onto whatever I was appliquing. And then I just do a buttonhole stitch all the way around, or blanket stitch, whichever one, or you could do a zigzag stitch just around that edge. So that's raw edge applique. If it's a very large shape, then a lot of times I would cut out the very center of that steam-a-seam so that your whole shape is not stiff. And that's what I did for years and years and years until I came upon Lori Holt. Her method is a little different. So here is a block using, this was a tutorial that that Lori did, showing you how you could use some of her So Simple shapes to make other things. So this is made to look like a mason jar, and but the same shape was used in the My So Happy Place quilt as a button jar. So it's using this large jar shape, okay? And what you do is, this uses Lori Holt's interfacing. So Lori Holt's interfacing, you can get it in long rolls like this, not super long, but it's several yards. You can get it in, I think you can get it in like 10-inch squares also. But Lori Holt's interfacing, it's a little stiff. This is not fusible, because in her method you wouldn't want it to be fusible. So what you do with this is you would trace this design onto the interfacing, okay, just around the edges, just with a mechanical pencil, something like that. And then you would, or you can cut your piece ahead of time. You just need this to fit on here. And you're going to cut your square. I would cut this larger and make it square is what I would do. Okay, so you're going to outline this shape with your pencil. This would be cut larger than that. You then take that piece of interfacing, and this is how you would layer it. So I would have a piece of fabric first, right side up, and then I would take my interfacing where I just had traced with a mechanical pencil, and I would lay that right on top of the fabric. Okay, then now this would be square. It would have that drawing shape on here, and then I would take this to my sewing machine and I would stitch right on that drawn line. And again, this would be squared off. I wouldn't have all of this extra. I would draw straight on that squared line. I would cut out around that shape, then 1/4 inch around the shape, and then you're going to slit this, just the interfacing, and you're going to turn it right side out. So let me show you the back of this so you can see what I'm talking about. So with this, these are just, actually I think the pins are in here because I had glue basted them. I had glue basted these pieces together. So if I did a good job by pulling out these pins, you'll it should stay together, but you'll be able to see the back of this jar. All right, so here's all of it. It's just glue basted right now, so this is ready to go to the sewing machine. But you can see my my jar piece here where I had slid it down. So that interfacing would have been on the front of this fabric. I slit that interfacing and then I just flipped it inside out so that now my fabric is on the outside. I've got nice clean edges. You use something, Lori Holt suggests different tools that you can use just to get that shape pushed all the way out, not too hard. You don't want to poke through the edges there. And then you can see how that interfacing is to the back. It doesn't matter that that's got a slit in it because that's going to be up against whatever fabric that I then applique this onto. So if you're appliquing it onto a quilt, you would then you would glue baste it down because this is not sticky in any way. So you would glue baste it down just with the Sudali glue, and then you can do your buttonhole stitch all the way around. That's the way all of these pieces are done. The heart piece is done the same way. It's got the interfacing on the back. I even did that little white square the same way. And these two pieces are done. Now this one, the gray one, is just a strip. I didn't need to use interfacing for that one. And then this one is also just one of the shapes from Lori's thing. Now you can see at the very top, I did push through too hard on that. I could do one of two things. I could have, prior to putting this all together, I could have stitched that line again. I'm just playing on with my stitching. This is just for me. You make mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect. At least in my book, it doesn't. But with my stitching along the edge, that I'm not worried about that little bit of fraying right there. It's just not going to bother me. So that is Lori Holt's method of applique, and that's exactly what Carrie did for these shapes right here. Now Carrie did just a straight stitch just around the very edge of those applique shapes, right on top of those seeds, and then around the circle there. You could do a buttonhole stitch, you could do a zigzag stitch, but because that edge is all, it's enclosed, there's not going to be any fraying along there at all. So it's not as important with doing Lori Holt's method that you stitch down those edges because they're not going to fray at all. They're closed seams, all enclosed. So that's Lori Holt's method, okay? And you can create any kind of quilt like this. You can take any of her shapes, create new blocks. You know, she has chicken shapes, she has flower shapes like I've seen, like I showed you, heart shapes like you've seen on here, all different shapes of hearts. I've used this same heart shape. I have a client who likes to put a heart-shaped label on the back of her quilts, and this is how I've created that label for her, is using Lori Holt's shapes like this. And then you can create your own your own quilt. Just, reimagine the shapes any way you want. Later this year, Lori Holt's coming out with her typography line, and she's got a whole line of So Simple shapes that are all letters. So excited. Reminds me so much of what Nancy Halverson did many years ago. I showed you those Art to Heart books that Nancy Halverson did, where I did the different banners, and Lori Holt's doing the same thing, except she's doing them with her So Simple shapes. So all of the letters will be done with these, with the So Simple shapes in this plastic like this. So excited about that. So that's how you get those shapes. That's Lori Holt's applique method. So really enjoy that. I want to talk about pantograph on this one. And I did print it out because it's going to be a little hard for you to see on this. Carrie asked me if I would do dragonflies. And so I did a search for dragonfly pantographs, found several, sent those to her. And this is the one she chose. Dragonfly Daisies is the name of this one. So cute, very dainty. Now on here, I would say I did it just about that same size. So I did it kind of tight. And we did use the celery thread color. Celery is done by So Fine. It's done by Superior Threads. It's in their So Fine line. And I did also purchase pre-wound bobbins that were done in the celery color. So I have celery on the front, celery on the back, and I really like this. I don't buy pre-wound bobbins except normally in my white, my cream, and my grays. Knowing I had these 2 quilts to do and I was doing all in the celery, I just decided to go ahead and purchase those as well as pre-wound bobbins so that I didn't have to do all that winding, and I really like the finished piece of this one. So it's all done in the celery. Celery is like a greenish, like a pale green color. Not sure if you'll be able to see that color difference on there, but it's very cute. It really goes along with the whole garden theme of this quilt. And the dragonflies are so cute. I laid the back of this quilt out so you can see that Carrie did some big piecing, big piece of fabric on the top. Then she used 2.5-inch strips for the center part, and then another big piece of yardage for the bottom. Really like that, and that's the way she did both of those quilts, and you may be able to see that dragonfly. And with the celery color on the back, I just really like it. I think it turned out really nice. Really like that design. So Dragonfly Daisies, and this is one pass, so you can see it does go up into the other one just a tad bit, not terribly, but it's a nice design. You can see how the bubbles of this one kind of come down into the negative space of the wings and the tail of that dragonfly. Nice little circles on there. The dragonflies are nice and a nice shape to them, nice and chunky, but just a nice rounded shape there. I really like that one. So those are Carrie's 2 quilts, and I think they turned out just beautiful. I have 3 quilts to share with you that are Diane's, and this first one is called Bobbin Blossoms, and this was in the April 2024 So Sampler box. So here is a copy of the pattern. This is my copy from when I get my So Sampler box. So this was created by Heather Briggs of My So Quilty Life. This is also her fabric line, and it is called Flower Girl. Slipped my mind there for a minute. Yes, it's called Flower Girl. And so last year's line, so pretty, but what I want you to see is here's the pattern. And I want you to see how Diane has changed this quilt. So instead of doing the 2 lines, which is what she did, but instead of having one turned up and one down so that This is meant more for like a table topper, so it didn't matter which way you were doing it. And Diane decided that she wanted all of the bobbins facing the same way, with the flower coming up out of the bobbins, and that way she can use this as a wall hanging or something like that, so it's more directional. And then she did add some larger borders on than the original quilt pattern called for. You can see it just had one, it really just finished right after this outside border here with the light. So she added the green, and then using the same fabric line from the Flower Girl fabric line, she put on that larger peachy border around the outside edge. So very, very nice. So it ends up measuring 56 by 60, where the original quilt was just 42 by 46. So the same fabric line, all of the inside is just the same. She has just turned the flowers so that they're all facing the same direction, and I really like her adaptation to this pattern. So the pantograph on this one is called Chantilly Lace, a very dainty, classy pantograph. So it does a swirl in, loop, 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 and a swirl, and then it does that same loop going up the other way. So no matter which direction you look at it, it looks the same. It kind of looks like an old wrought iron fence, or something like scroll work that would be on a fence like that. And I really like it with this fabric line, with this this pattern. I like that it's not floral, but it kind of gives you that idea of floral just with the loops. Very classy. The size of it, the pantograph itself, is probably about 4 inches tall, and it does nest up very nicely. The top of this scroll work goes up inside the negative space of the one above it, and so it fits in nicely, just flows very nicely across the quilt. Now on the back, you can probably see it a whole lot better. She put this black fabric on the back. This is something that she has in her stash. Actually, all 3 of her quilts have the same backing on it, and so it's very nice. If you find a backing that you like, just stick with it, and you can use it on lots of quilts. And so I like this because it shows off the pantograph so well. So you can really see that Chantilly lace design. The 3 loops up, and then the scroll, and then 3 loops down, and then the scroll. Now, thread color on this one, I did go with the Omni Cream. Now, looking at the front, you'd say, well, that was a strange choice because this fabric is white right here. But my reasoning in going with the cream was really because that backing fabric was the black. And while I knew my quilting was going to show up on the back, I didn't want to make it just flashy, you know. So if I would have done white on the front, that meant white on the back also, and I felt that that was going to be a little too bright. So I actually went with the Omni Cream. And on top of these fabrics, you really have a hard time telling that it's cream on those white. It really doesn't dim it, I don't think, at all. And then you've got your other melon colors, your lemon colors, your greens. They're a little more muted. They're not really bright. They're subtle. And so I think going with that cream color just blended in really nicely with that, and did a nice effect on that, on the white fabrics. I don't think it dimmed them at all. But then on the back, it made this one, while you can see it, it's just a little more subtle. It's not going to stand out really bright. So this is the cream on the back as well. And I think it turned out well. Really nice. So very, very nice backing. So that is Diane's first quilt, and let's move on to her second one. Diane's second pattern is called Filigree. Now, Diane is a certified educator for Studio 180 rulers. Those are done by Deb Tucker. And so the next 2 quilts I'm going to show you are shop samples, or samples that she would hang in a quilt store as she was preparing for a workshop that she might be giving, or she'll use these in trunk shows and that kind of thing. So this filigree pattern was done by Studio 180, and let me show you that, the pattern front on that one, so you can see the whole quilt. The fabric line that she's used this in is the Kaufman Batiks. So this pattern does come in 3 sizes. It comes in lap, twin, or queen. And let me see what size this one. This one measures 54 by 69, which is the smallest of the sizes. So that's the lap size. So if you really liked it, you can make it in the larger size with the twin or the queen size. Now with the Studio 180 patterns, they are using the Studio 180 rulers. And so Diane will use these in order to teach the classes, and then in order to teach people to use those Studio 180 rulers. So nice rulers. These help you to get your blocks absolutely perfect. Some of the blocks are a little fussier. She really helps you in teaching these classes and in using the rulers to get those blocks the exact sizes that you need. So for this pattern, it's using 2 rulers. It's using the large square squared ruler and the corner beam ruler. So the large square squared ruler, it is helping you to, this is called a trim down ruler for one of quilting's most basic units, which is your square in a square. Now you may be looking at this quilt and going, where is the square in the square? Though this block right here has a square in a square unit. Actually, the one right here is a square in a square. This white piece right here is a square in a square right there. And so this fabric, or this ruler then helps you cut down your blocks, your square in a square blocks, anywhere from 1 inch all the way up to 12 inches. So this isn't one where you need 12 different size of rulers. You're using one ruler, and it will help you to cut down those square in a square blocks for all of those different sizes. You can see how small that is. And then there's another square right here. So you've got that square inside, and then another square out here, and then another one right here. So that is one block. The other block in this quilt is one right here. It's made up by 4 blocks, and you see this shape right here. And the other tool that you use for this quilt is the corner beam. So that is what you are using to create this shape right here, where you have these 2 lines that come to one point on the side of that square, and then like it's a ray of light or a beam of light that is coming out. And then you have one this other direction too, and they're facing each other that way, and then that's what's creating those shapes there. So this entire quilt is made with 2 blocks. Here is one of your blocks, here is the second block, and then you're alternating those, and you get that really cool pattern. That is just so neat. How it spins around, almost like the snail's trails block is what that reminds me of, but you're using these rulers, and it's just a really, really neat block. So I wanted to show you an example. Here is another star. This is from that corner beam ruler, and this is an example of a block that you can make. So you can see how it's not, again, these rulers are not just for one block. I'm only going to use it for one pattern, for one quilt. No, there are so many different patterns that you can use it for in so many different ways. So here's a star block where you have that same corner beam unit right here. You have all 4 of them on the 4 corners. Here you're just using 2 of them, and you're getting that design there. So very, very neat. So I have linked both of those different types of rulers. If you want to learn how to use the rulers, then this would be a great pattern to get, so that you're using a couple of the different rulers and learn how to use them. So square and a square and the corner beam are the 2 that you're using for this pattern. So then on the outside, she did the darker border. So this is black, but it's got just a hint of purple in there. And then the larger purple border around the outside. Then on the back, we have that same black backing that she used on her last quilt. I did want to point out that on here on the front, this background fabric that you're seeing right here, it's like a very, very light lavender color. And it's very pretty. I really like that. So it's a low volume, but it's not a white or a cream. It's just a very light lavender and a very nice effect with the other colors of this quilt. So that made a difference on the color thread that I used on this one. So I did use a light gray thread on this one, and I brought that one to show you as well. This is the Omni light gray, and I think it looked really nice on these fabrics. It really blended with that light lavender background fabric. You can see it a little bit more on these darker black, purplish black colors here. It blended nice. I like gray with purple. I think gray and purple go really nicely together. And then on the backing fabric, I did use the light gray, and again it's going to show up a little bit more, but I don't want to go too dark. I don't want to go with a dark or a medium or a dark gray, because then that's going to detract from the quilt top on the front. So you really almost get like a whole cloth quilt effect on the back with all of you're able to see all of the pantograph on the back. So the pantograph, this is the Moulin Rouge. And I didn't shrink it down super tight. I didn't feel like it really needed it. I felt like the swirls of this one are a little larger, so I made the swirls of this one a little larger as well. I do feel that this pantograph softens the quilt some. You've got some really nice, stark, pointy lines on the pattern. And so by going with something a little softer, I just think it softened up the whole quilt a little bit. And so with Moulin Rouge, it's just beautiful coverage. It comes in and does a swirl. It comes out, there's a little point right there. There's some paisley type there, a little point, another swirl down here, a small paisley. And this is something that you really could do if you're hand guided. This is just guiding yourself in. Obviously it wouldn't be as uniform across the quilt, but these same muscle movements are ones that you could do if you're doing hand guided. So you're just doing a swirl. Here you're doing a circle on top of that. Now a trick with doing a circle on top of that is, here you're doing a swirl. Don't stop and then do your circle. You continue your movement. It'll make it a lot smoother. So you're coming around doing this swirl. You continue that movement and do your circle that way, and then you're continuing on to do the point and then back around. And then you can do, here it's just a point, back, you're doing the paisley, echoing that, a paisley, echoing that, over to this side, and a point. So something you can draw on your marker board. You can just practice on some fabric like this if you've got a solid color, and do a light color thread so you can really see what you're doing. And again, if you're doing hand guided, it may not be as uniform going across the quilt, but you would be filling in your throat space. If your throat space is this big, you could be filling in your throat space as you're moving from left to right across the quilt. So you could still do these same types of designs. It doesn't have to be as uniform as it is with a digital design. You can do the same swirls. You can do some circles. Now I'm ready for some paisleys. And you work yourself up here, and then you work yourself down here and back around. So as you're working from left to right on your machine, you're just filling in your entire quilt space or entire throat space. And when you rotate your quilt, then you'll be able to get up into some of those other areas that maybe you didn't get all the way down, so that it feels more uniform across the quilt. But some swirls, some paisleys, a little bit of circles, maybe a point there, and you could do the same sort of feel on a hand-guided design. So I do like that gray color thread on top of the purples, and I really like that lavender, that light lavender. A nice background fabric to go with this. And again, these are all Kaufman batiks, but they read as solids when you're seeing the quilt. So a nice use of batiks. So you get a little bit of modeling, a little bit of shading in your pattern, but it still reads as a solid when you're looking at the whole quilt. So that is Diane's second quilt, and let's move on to her third one. And Diane's third quilt is called Wish Upon, and here is that pattern. This also is a Studio 180 pattern, and it's helping you to learn the rulers as well. This one uses 3 separate rulers from what I just showed you on that one. It uses the split Rex ruler, which is creating, you can see the point of this star right here, this block, this rectangle right here. It's creating that block where you have a rectangle, but it is split diagonal. That is not an easy shape to make. It's not like doing a half square triangle where it's like this right here is a half square triangle where you're just stitching from one side to the other. It doesn't work that way with a rectangle. Just trust me, it's math. It doesn't work that way. So this split Rex ruler, and here is a picture of that one to show you that. So it tells you how to cut your fabrics and then how to use this ruler to create that shape right there. That's in all of these blocks. You're getting that long pointy shape is using that split Rex ruler. Then you're also using the Tucker trimmer, and this is to trim up any square blocks that you have. So if you are doing half square triangles, if you're doing hourglass units, anything that ends up as a square unit is where you're using this trimmer ruler, and that's what you're using right here. You can see one star, or one on each one of this on each side of this star you have one point that's a half square triangle, and you have one point that's the rectangle, making that longer shape there. And then these nest up into each other. I really like this. I like how the stars nest up into each other. It's a very nice design, because so often we have everything just, in a grid pattern, and I really like the way this nests into each other. So you're using the Tucker trimmer to create your half square triangle units, to trim them up so they're perfectly shaped. And you can see Diane's points are perfectly done. And then you're using the split Rex ruler to create that rectangle shape there. Then the final ruler you're using is to trim down the flying geese units. And here is the wing clipper. And again, you don't need 10 different wing clipper rulers. I think there are 3, but this one, 10 different size units on this one ruler. It's good for left-hand and right-handed users. And so the wing clipper is what you're using for this border on here. Let me pull this in a little bit. You can see the border all around the outside edge. I like this, that the flying geese units are 2 different colors on either side. So then you are using that trim it ruler, or that Studio 180 ruler that trims up your flying geese units, and that's what's all around the edge. And that is so easy to get off. If your flying geese units are different sizes and then you're putting it on as a border around your quilt, and suddenly it's not fitting because that's a lot of pieces. So using these trimming rulers really helps you to get the perfect size on this one. So then this quilt then has a purple border, and then it has the darker, this is more of a blue with some purple hints in there. This fabric line is all the Moda Grunge, so all the different colors. The purples, the burgundies, the blues in the center of the star. You've got purples, you've got some orangey colors, some bright yellows, and greens. Just very, very nice. So here's a larger picture of that wing clipper ruler. You can see all the different sizes. That's for all your different size flying geese units. So very nice. This Wish Upon pattern comes in lap size and full size. Diane's measures 68 by 78, which is the lap size, and there's also a full size that measures 80 by 92. All right, backing fabric on this one is that same dark background, and that really shows up the pantograph. This pantograph is called Ginger Snap, and so this one has a circle inside of a circle, and then it spins out and does 3 loops, and then does another circle inside of a circle, 3 loops, circle inside of a circle, and just moving across your quilt just like that. I did make this one fairly large with the size of the stars on the front. It didn't need to be super tight. And I like this addition of circles and swirls. We've got lots of straight stars on the front, sharp points, flying geese units, everything's very sharp and straight. And this just softens it up by adding some circle shapes, but not going with a geometric shape, I want to say. So not going with just all circles. This really just is a softer circle inside of a circle, a big swirl, 3 loops, but just adding some curviness to the line, or just some curviness to the pattern on the front. The thread color I used on this one is actually called Almond. And there's what that one looks like. Now, this one is just a tad bit darker than the cream. So let me put the cream next to it. And you can see the almond has just a little more of a grayish tint to it. This worked really well with these grunge prints because grunge has that little bit of a tannish, I don't even know if tannish is a word, but a little bit of the a dirtier type of look. It's not dirty. I don't know. I don't mean to say that, but just that little bit of a tannish on top of all of the colors. So every color, but then you have just a little bit of the tan lines in there. And so this almond color I felt went really nicely. It's still light enough on the light colors, but not too bright on the darker ones. And just kept with that same sort of just a little bit of a beige color on top of those. And then the background, I think I actually used, the cream bobbin in this one. I didn't wind almond ones, but I did the cream because it was very similar. But on the front, I felt that the almond just a little grayer of a tint, a little tannish, more tan than the cream. And I'll hold those beside each other so you can see them again. So this is the almond on this side, and this is the cream on that side. So very, very nice. Love Diane's quilts. And so I will link Diane's information down below if you are a quilt guild or a shop who would like to have her in to teach some classes for you, to do a trunk show for you. And you'll want to get a hold of her and see if she's available to do that, because obviously she does very nice work. So great job, Diane, and I'll be getting these back to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed the last hour or so. You've gotten other things, some other quilting done while you've been watching me. But I thank you each week for joining in with me and seeing all the beautiful quilts that customers send in. If you are in need of long arm quilting services, my information is down below. If you have questions, send me an email. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. But until next week, I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll enjoy lots of quilting time, and let's pray that the storms stay away now. I hope you are safe wherever you are. And I will be back here next week because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.